So I want to force street dance to commence. I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public community to address the city council concerning items of interest. Not all remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Requests to comment electronically must be submitted by email to the city recorder at info@cityofgearhart.com. In-person attendees wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to the meeting. All right, first we'll do the mail. Everyone's got their packet mail. Correspondence, thank you, which is one, two, three, four, five. We got 5 late correspondence, and we have 3, 4, 5 correspondence and special advocates, which is CASA, a thank you letter from them, and a letter from CIS saying that by the legislature so we can take down our signs if we feel like. Right?
Yes, maybe here.
I mean, I would not recommend we take down our sign. I appreciate everything the legislature did. But we had immunity prior to that until court cases. And so I think that just reiterating that people that are using on our trails are using them for recreational purposes is important.
Okay.
Unless you hate the signs.
No, anything that keeps us out of court.
Yeah.
That's the way to go.
I've got a comment on that. I mean, we don't actually maintain the trails, they sort of maintain themselves because of, they're beating the sand and the grass down. I mean, if you get off the trail and trip in the, bang your head on one of the benches or something like that.
Right. So the case that caused, there was a lady on a walk, and the argument that not just the circuit court, but the Court of Appeals agreed with was that she wasn't actually recreating when she was walking on the trail. She did not plan to start recreating until she arrived at the beach. And because whether in your heart or mind, you believe you're recreating at the time or are walking to your recreating is not something that we could ever prove. I recommended that we put up signs that said trails are for recreational purposes only. Then if people were not saying they weren't recreating on the trail, we could say you're trespassing. So our insurer had recommended that some cities literally shut down all their trails. But I felt like we could do it through signage. And then the legislature fortunately came in and passed a bill. But because the ruling in that prior case involves someone's subjective intent, that's something that how would have ever proved. And so that's why we put up the signs. You can blame lawyers.
They're working on putting up the signs.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still awaiting those signs, but they will be here soon, and we intend on still putting them on.
And also
Okay.
optimistically, this is a temporary fix. Optimistically, they're saying that they'll have a permanent resolution in place soon. But I think we're better safe than sorry. Just in case they don't have the permanent fix.
All right. Moving on. We have one person signed up. Beth Cameron, please state your name and address for the record.
Beth Cameron, 2906 Pine Court. I just have an ask, and I don't know if this is okay or not, because this agenda is so packed, I don't know if it's gonna be something that's gonna be addressed later or not, anyway. Would it be possible to get the link to the OSHA, I assume it's OSHA standards for the fire department and the police emergency services building? What are the things that they absolutely have to have? I looked and it was so conflicting. One place said that the federal doesn't trump state in this situation. Some said that rural districts are under a different category. It just was really confusing. So I know you had spoken about it at one of the town halls I listened in on. So if you could, I don't know, put it on the blog, shoot me an email yourself, I don't care. I just would like to look at all of that so that.
Yeah,
for my own peace of
I'll
mind.
give you an email tomorrow.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. I'll ask, is anyone else willing or wanting to talk? Good. We're moving on. Let's get through all this.
I don't see anybody in line.
No hands up. I didn't see any when I crossed my eyes. All right, next is ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance 943, an ordinance amending the city of Gearhart zoning ordinance section 3.2 medium density residential R-2 zone. Chad, will you give it? a synopsis?
Well, actually, Garrett was going to give the synopsis today. He wasn't able to make it, so standing in for Garrett is Mr. Peter Watts. He's going to give this.
And so in Gearhart, we have a number of what will be termed pre-existing non-conforming uses. And that's that the use was in effect prior to the zoning going into effect. And the zoning going into effect means that they can continue the use as long as they don't abandon the use for a year and a day. So if you were allowed to do something prior to the zoning going in, you can continue to do it unless you abandon it. An example of that would be the Young Life House. That was a camp for many years, even though it's in the R1 neighborhood and that wouldn't be allowed. They abandoned that use for a period of a couple of years. And we're honest that they had done that they had not utilized it in a few years and said, what can we do with this property? And we said it could be a single family residence. So that's an example of a pre-existing non-conforming use. One of those is the inn that is next to the fire station. A hotel is not allowed in an R2 zone. Practically speaking, that means that it's impossible to get financing for rehabilitation and other things, because one of the boxes that lenders look at is whether it's an allowed use, which it's not. So it's just allowed because it was in effect prior to our zoning code going in. So they requested a amendment, and it is drafted incredibly narrowly. And it, in some respects, does nothing, in other respects does something. And so this would apply to a hotel legally established prior to the adoption of the zoning code of October 1994, shall be considered a conditional use. We verified that this was the only property that would be under this designation. So it doesn't revive a former hotel where they'd now be able to do a hotel as a conditional use. In order to make any changes to the use, they would have to go through the conditional use process. There would be public hearings, so members of the public could weigh in, and then if it got appealed to the city council, you could weigh in as well. The standard on that is, that it does not increase the degree of nonconformity. So that standard would really give a planning commission the flexibility to say no or yes. And it would be very difficult for, well, frankly, it would give them the ability to say no if they didn't like any change that was happening, and it would make it very unlikely that someone challenging that would prevail on appeal. Because for that standard, increased degree of nonconformity, you as the city council to a large extent, and then as the planning commission to a slightly lesser extent, receive vast deference in the interpretation of your own code. So if you said that it met your code, you know, unless you're clearly wrong, that's not going to be really something that's appealable. So we had the public hearing on it. Interestingly, there was no opposition at either the planning commission level or the city council. And based on your instructions, we prepared this ordinance for tonight's meeting.
So basically, if it was damaged by fire, it'd be able to rebuild.
Yeah, because if they, or if like during COVID where their construction projects just stopped, if it got stopped through no fault of their own, you know, instead of the year and the day us saying sorry, try something else, they would be able to rebuild it.
Can I get a motion? Is there any discussion after the motion?
I will give you a motion to approve ordinance 943, reading by once title only. Reading once by title only.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, first reading's done. Come back next month and do the second, or can we do it twice tonight and then it's got 30 days to go into effect?
Can only do it twice tonight if we declared an emergency.
Oh, I'm not doing that. So we'll just wait until next month. Okay. Next. New business. Post office synopsis. And who's doing that one?
Public can speak.
Pardon me?
Public can speak. Business.
Under new business? I don't have that notice on my paper. Okay, does anyone have anything they want to? That's under old business and new business. This is just. What are we doing? Skipping new business, then old business and then new business?
Whole business was zip code.
Right, but I've got two different headings for new business on my agendas.
Sorry about
That's
that. So after ordinance 943, we've got old business zip code update. That might be creating confusion, different than the post office information. So we can go through the zip code update quick if you'd like. Mayor?
Yeah, that would be good because I've got it twice on my agenda.
Yeah.
And I have new business twice on my agenda.
Okay.
And a man who does it by the paper, it's confused.
So zip code update, this was updated, even of just recently. So Councillor Fackrell requested that, we do an update as part of the month councillor concerns. And with Seaside very recently hiring a new master, we were able to meet and bring her up to speed on the situation for Gearhart and what our requests were for a zip code of our own. Since it's been in process for almost 3 years, staff provided you with a brief timeline, which is a 1.5 pages long, of how this came about, where we've been. And there's been a lot of delays for various reasons. We've been working on this since fall of 2021. We have had Representative Bonamici penning a letter. We have had a lot of people involved in this and then kind of rotate out of the USPS organization that made things difficult. So working with the new postmaster in Seaside has been very refreshing. The last updates for this is that Trish Christian, or Patricia Christian, the new postmaster, debriefed us via phone, emailed all copies of correspondence and letters and timeline, and is supportive of a separate zip code for the Seaside in Gearhart. As of March 2024, reintroduced us to the Postal Service caseworker, Fatima Kenworthy, who is reaching out to the regional USPS leadership. There has been some communications today through Christy as well, but at this point, we are in a process with USPS and we're kind of at their, moving at their speed. And so that's the information that I have. And Christy, if you're listening, remind me if there was anything that came up today that was important.
Nope,
Okay,
no development.
so that's where we are with the zip code situation. One thing that I think is going to be helpful is all the recent conversations that we've had about our post office. Recent, I mean, since Monday. And some of the folks that are involved in this, such as our representatives, are becoming engaged, wanting to learn more. So I'm actually quite thankful for some of that. And I think that this zip code situation, we should be getting an answer about this fairly soon, but it may take a few more months. And that's only, kind of a hope. We're again at the whim of USPS and their decision-making process. So I don't have a lot of other information at that point, other than we're all current. They have all the information that they need, all the correspondence that they need. And we're waiting for their process, and we'll update you more, but we learn more.
I have one positive to say. In all of my calls that I made today, every person that I spoke to, Bonamici's office, Gearhart, they all, without my prompting them, they all brought up the issue of the zip code. So they are aware of that, and that, that is also related in our dealings with the post office and the issues that we have here in town and on that. So that means that it's in their mind, and as they're, I got an email recently from Bonamici's office just within the last hour or so, saying that they have reached out to Eagles Post Office, the people that would be in charge of this, and they're waiting for advice, so.
I'm just curious because there's so many under Exhibit A, so many towns that are even smaller population wise than us that have their own zip code. What's the hesitancy, do you think, on the part of the USPS to give us our own zip code? I don't
know if it's a hesitancy or we're just in the middle of a process that's taking a lot longer than it should have. I haven't heard anything. Some people say within this that, this is possible. We've seen other small towns do this that are even smaller than you, even with post offices that are closer in neighboring towns. So that felt pretty good. Other people are saying, well, I'd be surprised if they were to make this decision. So we're not too sure. We're not getting any indication from USPS, and we're just in the process. I really wish I could tell you more.
So every time there's a new postmaster, the process in some respects starts over. So because they have to get up on all these issues. So I think that we were, a fair ways down the road with the former postmaster, and now we have a new postmaster who's dealing with this issue in addition to post office issue. And so, it's gonna take some education.
And just one more thing to add, I know our timeline starts with, fall of 2021. But today, a citizen sent me an interesting article from the Daily Historian from March 5th of 2003, where the city council discussed this very issue and whether an issue about home delivery. And I had it included, I got that resident's permission to add her email and this article into our late submissions. It's on the record, so if you want to go and find it online, you'll just go to our council packet from tonight, and it'll be under the late correspondence if you want to read this article. It's very interesting, especially considering some of the things I've seen on social media that the new postmaster has told people. It's enlightening.
Okay,
Councilor Packrell, did you get any other questions that you might have at the moment?
I'm fine.
Okay.
that's the zip code.
That's a zip code.
Let's go to the post office synopsis.
Okay, so just to start this conversation out, from 3,000 feet up on Monday, well, some people on social media found out over the weekend. But on Monday, the city found out about the post office closing in Gearhart. This situation here is a post office that we have and we've had for many years, and Karen's taken good care of us. That is a contracted office, meaning that it's not a USPS office. It's not United States Postal Service. What it is they are a contractor with the USPS to act as a post office for the city of Gearhart. All of our mail is received by Seaside. It's gone through and shipped over towards the Gearhart office. The ladies at the Gearhart post office diligently fill the post office boxes with our mail that they get from Seaside. They also, again, take in packages, you can buy stamps there, but that is all done by a contract. The person that owns that contract or has that contract has become very ill and is no longer able to do the work and is interested and wants to get out of the business of doing that in order to focus on their own lives, I would say. So in that, and because of some emergencies on their side, the notice was given to the USPS here in Seaside, the Postal Service, that they were going to no longer take care of this contract and that they were done and gave essentially 30-day notice. There was some conversations earlier that may or may not have happened in regards to that this may have been coming because this person was concerned with their health, but the fact is that they've got a 30-day notice to the USPS that they were going to close down operations in Gearhart.
So normally it'd be 120 days, but this person was able to get a hardship exemption because of their health issues.
So this building that the post office is in is also owned by somebody different. So the the folks operating the contract have a lease with that building. So that's what it looks like on the ground to start with. With this closure, people were obviously upset and concerned. There's a lot of things that we run our lives through with the post office, medications, voting, and bills. But I think that people were very concerned. There's people in town that don't drive. There's people in town that have difficulty getting places. And there's just people in town that love going to the Gearhart post office to learn a little bit about what's going on. So with that, we became very concerned. And I was very thankful for, at that time, Councilor Dana and Mayor Carrie Smith coming in. And we started working on this together, trying to garner as much information as possible. It sounds like what the Seaside Post Office is going to do, if in fact there isn't somebody to take over the contract as it is now in the place that it is. And frankly, I would be surprised if that happened in time for us to avoid any disruptions. So I think that we as a community should be prepared for disruption. And I think Dana's got some ideas about ways that we can do that. But if that's the case, and this shuts down for a period of time to start with, then Seaside will be handling Gearhart's mail. And what this means is that Gearhartians will need to go to Seaside during business hours because Seaside does not have enough post office boxes to accommodate Gearhart. I've heard numbers of 600, 650 or so.
We have 700, I have a map here, I don't know, you can't see it, but everything in red are the houses that do not receive home delivery.
Yes.
More than half of our geographical area. There's about 712 mailboxes, about 2/3 of those are utilized by people who do not have access to street delivery. Some of the houses that are in the red in here do not have boxes because they're simply second homeowners that aren't interested in getting mail here. Or they have, for whatever reason, gone someplace else to get a mailbox. Some people have one already at Seaside. Some people have one down the street here at the UPS or FedEx. So it's gonna impact a significant number of people.
So what Seaside's going to do is set up a sorting area behind their desk, and they're going to sort the mail and have it available for folks from Gearhart. Again, that you have to go into Seaside during business hours for Seaside, probably wait in line, talk to the desk folks, and ask for your mail.
And show ID.
Is that, I didn't know that was required.
You're gonna be showing ID because they won't just give it out because I'm Tom Jones. You know, anyone can do that.
So that's the way that this is looking. Now, where we have some hope in this is that according to USPS Seaside, the Postal Service in Seaside, there has been a list of people that have been interested in taking over the contract if it was to ever become available. And now with the news, I'm sure there's more people that may be interested. There are small organizations that hold multiple contracts around Oregon, and they may want to come in and take care of Gearhart as well. What that looks like, would that be the same type of services that we have now? I'm not so sure. But the hopeful part in this is that somebody will come in and want to sign this up contract with USPS and continue the services basically as they are. That's the best case scenario. If that for some reason does not happen, or city needs to come up with another solution to for mail in Seaside, another option that is out there is the possibility, and I don't know where they are exactly in USPS, is to go full delivery service in Gearhart. Now, one of the issues, again, we have 700 people, and you heard from Peter earlier, the amount of people that are moving into Gearhart has been substantial. They've been moving into mostly their second homes, so this isn't something you can really see or get your hands on. But this is just another piece to that puzzle with the additional people in town and the additional pressures that have been put on that post office as well. So if they go to road service, one of the things that was going around town was that the city of Gearhart was preventing somehow the postal service from doing house-to-house delivery. And I can tell you, we've done some research. In the 13 years I've been here, we've never had this conversation about bringing in more mail service into Gearhart. They've had a lot of conversations in the 2005 period of time, and I recommend you visit the site and read the letter that Councilor Gould was talking about. It'll add a little bit of historical value to this as well. Talking about all the way back in the 60s and even before of how Gearhart operated with its postal service. So if we assured, and the postal service was maybe misinformed in thinking that we were as a body preventing street service for our residents, and we're not. We don't have anything in our code that would prohibit this. That would be almost a decision that would be made by USPS that they can start doing. As a matter of fact, as of today, and I can't give you any information, so I don't know where this is, there is one more street that is getting delivery service, which is a decision that they made today to start helping. I don't know where that is, and that's gonna create some issues here for us in Gearhart as well. Because if that is the direction that Gearhart goes, then we're talking mailboxes in front of all the homes. We're talking about where those need to be placed, whether or not they can be in the right of way or not, which they cannot. And so there's going to be some growing pains in order for us to get to that point.
So the other possibility is that the Seaside Post Office could send a postal employee to the Gearhart Post Office in order to sort the mail and deliver it. They've had a preliminarily, I think, ran that up the flagpole. And at the district level, people were concerned about budget. I've had, like everyone else, a number of phone calls, and one of the points that I've made to political staff is, does Seaside even have room for essentially 800 cubbies to put people's mail in? How about people that are maybe not here during business hours that are coming in on the weekend? How are they going to be able to get their mail? And how much staff time is it going to take for you to have dedicated staff trying to operate that system in an already crowded post office versus just sending someone over a couple times a week to do this? And then the other point that I have made is that normally with this 120-day notice, the USPS has the ability to hopefully get through the entire request for proposals for the person to pick up the contract. And there's no standard fee. These contractors negotiate their fee directly with the post office. Because we're in this situation where someone's gotten a hardship exemption, it seems to me that at least for that additional 90-day period, they should be willing to staff up our post office and deliver people's mail. Because I think there are probably people with mobility issues and other things. My understanding is there are very few parking spots in front of the Seaside Mail. They keep their back door open, which to keep it cool in there. But if your mail is in there, it seems to me like that could create potentially a theft issue or concern of that. I mean, I think there are a variety of reasons that it makes sense for people to advocate to elected officials for an outcome that is in the best interest of the people of Gearhart. And in my mind, I think that sending someone over would actually be the least costly and least impactful outcome, certainly less than driveway delivery for an additional 700 folks. And also, just the additional traffic that they would get in their post office, and how would they sort it, and do they even have a room? So I think that those are the type of things that, and I totally appreciate a can-do attitude, but I would hope that the folks over there at their post office would take a real look at what they're proposing looks like, the amount of resources it would take, the harm to people that may be working during business hours and not able to get there. I mean, there are a variety of factors that make me think that maybe they should be willing to look at that staffing option, at least on an interim basis. So I found out that at least one person had called Senator Wyden directly or contacted him directly, obviously that's Phil. So they're aware of this issue, the staff are aware of this issue. The staffers I was working with are different than the staffers that our Gearhart staff were working with. So there are multiple points of contact. And, one of the things I was told is there are a lot of post offices and Oregon that are closing. And so I think it's just important that the decision makers are aware of just how impacted people here are as compared to, somewhere else.
And pretty much everything has been said, but when this came to, first of all, we have to give a huge shout out to our community, because Gearhart has been all over this. Everybody I have called has said, yes, my phone has been blowing up today, my email has been blowing up today, and folks, that's how you get things done. I hate to say it, it's a sad commentary on a lot of our elected officials, but part of my last job, I had to go through a whole class where a lobbyist came in and told us, explained to us how many people your elected representatives really care about, and it's really a top tier, and if you call, generally, you're gonna get that guy who's in political Siberia. If he's working here in the city, he's not gonna be the top guy in the office, you know what I'm saying? Those people get taken with them to the Fed, to Washington DC or whatever. So usually you'll get a call back. But everybody I've called today said, oh yes, I'm aware of your situation, and they've already been ready and primed to tell me what their understanding of the problem is. Here's a couple of concerns I had. When we spoke with Seaside, we started off, or at least I started off as a concerned citizen, the way I always do, making nice, and let's approach this with honey and see how many bees we can attract, and maybe there can be a simple solution to this. But I have to be honest with you, I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned, and I don't want to badmouth somebody that we're in a partnership with. I just want them to understand that this is not a situation that is gonna go away, and I did let them know, I'm not sure if you understand the scope of this problem. We have people in this community that are 90 years old that have recently lost their license. How is that person going to get over there? Especially in a situation where we just lost our busing, or we don't have prime busing anymore. So that is something that I know that we're all cognitive now, and we may have to create some type of a volunteer program where we're helping our neighbors. Maybe we sign up where we do carpools to get our neighbors to get the mail, should the worst happen. I'm hopeful that with everybody working together and us shining a light on this, the worst won't come to happen, and that at the very minimum, they will come over and fill our boxes, okay? So that's one issue. The other issue is that in 4 weeks, we have an election coming up, and I'm sure everybody shares my concern that we want our ballots. And so if you do call or write, I would like you to mention that a quick resolution would be in their best interest. And I did let them know, hey, Gearhart people are very intelligent, they've got a lot of time on their hands, and they're not afraid to write letters. And so this stuff is gonna roll down to you, so please take this very seriously and know that you're gonna hear a lot about this. And y'all have stepped up, everybody has stepped up and are doing their part. Okay, so we have to come up with a volunteer program. Now, somebody else has been saying, well, they'll just start home delivery, and I've been getting a lot of emails for home delivery. Why couldn't we have home delivery? Let's have home delivery. And then I'm also getting the emails from the people that's our city water cooler. Everybody likes to go down there and meet, and you don't go down there without a full face of makeup, because you're gonna run into somebody and be able to talk about something and learn something about our community. I appreciate that also. But if this is something that is within the purview of the post office, and we'd like them to meet with us and come up with a solution, but if the only solution that they come up with is home delivery, as Chad said, we'll have some issues to resolve on our end as far as who can put in mailboxes, how much is that gonna cost, where are they gonna go, things like that. Those are fairly easy fixes. But if that's the only way we can get our mail, that may be it may not be necessarily a bad thing, because we live in an Amazon culture now. And all you have to do is visit the post office, and you're gonna see that it's probably within a short period of time, we would outgrow that mailbox or that mail station anyway. So we should be looking towards the future. Home delivery may not be a bad thing. So if you are for home delivery, I would also be interested in hearing from you. If there's something that we're not considering in this conversation, I'd love to hear from you. I looked into this as a citizen. I made it clear to everybody I was calling, pretty much that I was, I'm calling you, I am the city councilor, but I'm calling you because I'm about to lose my mailbox, and I'm concerned that my next check that I need will be sitting down in the post office to let me pick it up. It's a concern. It's a concern for me, and I know it's a concern for you. So I can't say that I ended the conversation being as nice as when I started. At least not all of my conversations. But I'm interested in hearing from you so I can represent you, and I'm sure everybody else is. Just so you know, Mayor and I did have a conversation about this, and my blog post today was a way of communicating to the other folks here what I've done, because we can't, outside of the meeting, it's difficult for us all to have conversations about what's going on. So I wanted them to be updated, and with that, I'm done.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. That's it for the post office.
I have a question though.
Okay,
How do
why
we-
don't you ask it?
Thank you. How do we find out who we should be contacting? Will somebody put something on the blog so that we know exactly who to attack?
I will, I'll
Attack.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I will, how about if I put a list of the people I've contacted, and one of the people I'm planning to contact tomorrow is our county election official. So she knows that this could be a problem for her.
Okay.
But then the usual Bonamici, Javati, who else is involved?
Senators Wyden and Merkley are
Yes.
really it's really the federal elected officials that are. Cause it is a relatively small amount of money that it would take to get stuff from Seaside over here. I mean, I've heard a couple of different numbers. So, I'm not comfortable. I don't know exactly how much it would be, but I was surprised by how low the number was. Like, one was like $2,000
Yeah,
a
I
month.
think the issue
So,
is staff.
so I just do not understand how they can't find that in their budget somewhere. But, you know, as everybody's implied, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, so, you know.
So,
We can speak,
I'm
yeah.
gonna ask in the back, Sandy,
Who would pay the rent on the building though? Is the $2,000 you just said include rent on the building to hold the boxes?
So the future phone calls that we need to have are with the building owner. If we have assurances that they're willing to continue renting the space, that'll give us a stronger, because this contract's gonna be over by the end of this upcoming month. So one of the things that we would wanna know is whether this property owner will continue renting the post office to the next operator or to the USPS. We don't know how much the rent is. We need to find that out. And then I just can't imagine that sending someone over to fill the boxes would be less expensive than home delivery. Because our roads aren't actually built out to the edge of the right of way. So this isn't a situation where they can be in a little Jeep and stick the mail in the box. This is a situation where they're probably gonna have to park the Jeep, walk the street, putting in, I mean, it's going to be a work. Not to mention everybody putting in mailboxes. And I mean, I do not think this would be a very difficult decision to see what the path of least resistance is, but we're gonna have to connect some more dots. And this is, I got a call, the first call I got was Sunday. And I told Chad, when I called him on Monday, I wasn't gonna call you on Easter. And he said, you should just call me. Anyway, but, we've learned a lot in a very short amount of time. And I think that the early advocacy efforts have gotten people's attention. And as we get more information, it's gonna be put out on the blog so that you can effectively advocate as well. So if, assuming the property owner is willing to continue renting, that's a really important point. Knowing that the rent is probably relatively small. And then can someone really make the claim that door-to-door delivery would be less time intensive or staff intensive than sticking mail in a box? And can they demonstrate that they can keep the mail safe and organized in Seaside so that people can efficiently get it? And I think that particularly given that we have some people with mobility issues, I think those are really the points that people need to hear. And again, we're like 3 days into this thing. We're still gathering a lot of information.
Yeah, I just had a point of order question. Since it's a new topic, can't you accept public comment? And we're kind of doing that right now, but.
yes,
Oh, okay. So just as a president of the HOA for Shamrock Pines, I shared some concerns with you via an email, and I appreciate your advocacy on this. There are other questions, can communities set up their own mailboxes? Researched a little bit of that, also talking to Trish. For our neighborhoods, only 41 houses, it cost us about $4,500 just to get the boxes and then installation. And they're saying that would be incumbent on us. Seems like that would be part of an overall solution for them. So I just think we need to think about some additional possibilities on this rather than just one solution fits all. Obviously, the zip code, old business, is something that needs to be resolved and cared for on a weekly basis. Yeah, I mean, a weekly email to somebody. Anyway, and then I really do think that I hope that the city of Gearhart would not seem in opposition of moving forward with daily mail service with concerns here and concerns there. But I think the perception needs to be looking for solutions for homeowners and not putting up barriers and objections. So I do hope you take that position.
Okay. Yes.
I have a question regarding packages then. If somebody came from Seaside to just put the mail in the boxes, what would happen with packages? Because they don't fit. So you would need somebody there to staff to be able to, have packages in a secure place.
I would say that you'd be going to Seaside to get your package. That's,
It's certainly a question we can ask. We did ask that, and I can't tell you any more than before I asked the question. We did invite them here tonight. So we're not gonna let it go.
Barry,
yeah, Jack.
we are in a subdivision that I believe is the only subdivision that has these freestanding mailboxes or mail banks, depending how you refer to it. We have not had a problem with 42 homes. Everybody gets their mail, packages are delivered there, and there's a system within the mail bank to accommodate packages. Works out great. Well, I think it's a good possible solution. Maybe you could strategically place mailboxes, or mail banks in areas closer to people's homes, like a little mini zip code for each region of the city. But it works and it's not that expensive.
Okay, well, that's something we can look into, but it's it is the customer of the USPS's responsibility. So if they decide they want to have a mail bank, it would be that group of people would be responsible. And I can tell you, after looking in some of the rules, one of the rules with the USPS is the mailbox has to be on private property. The house that it serves. That means people with their encroachment on the right of way with landscaping would have to remove that so they could drive up if they were doing drive up deliveries on streets. So all that landscaping would have to go away so they could drive up to your property line, which is basically where your water meter is, and deliver the mail.
I'm speaking of 3 banks for 43 houses.
Yeah.
There's no individual home deliveries. They go to one.
Jack, I know what you're talking about. I've driven on Fifth quite a few times. It's
And don't you think that's sort of simple little way of doing it?
Well, so it's up to the USPS to decide who gets mail delivery at their homes. So they're under no obligation to provide
Of course.
mail delivery.
Of course not, but can't
So
you just add?
only 25% of the houses in Gearhart, my understanding is about 25% get daily mail service to their homes or banks, if that's how the neighborhood association gets it. They have that is one of the questions we're asking is, are you able to provide mail service? And what is the timeline? And we don't have an answer to that.
Well, she said yes, and I'm suspicious of that answer because if you all recall 2 years ago, I know when I was running for office, there was a problem with the voters pamphlet. Some people got it the first day, some people got it the third day, some people never got it through the mail. And then through that, there became a very public discussion about their lack of staff down there. So I would be delighted if I was wrong. But I am very cynical that they can actually achieve that, but I am not, I would love to have my mail delivered at my house. I am one of those people that has had difficulties because the post office, or let's say I order something from Macy's or Nordstrom or whoever, they use the post office system to determine whether my address is valid or not. And if the post office doesn't deliver to my home, I'm not in their delivery bank and they say that's not a valid address. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here that everybody's having a problem along those lines. So getting home delivery would, to me, be ideal. But then I also have heard from people that love having the post office boxes because they like going down there, they like seeing their neighbors, and they like the being able to travel and not worry about what's happening with their mail and whatnot. So to wrap it up, I can see why some people like the post offices. I am getting more and more people saying they like home delivery. I'm not opposed to it. In regards to your comment about the cluster boxes, as long as you are clear that you are paying the post office for this service. And it's between the post office and the homeowner as far as how that is delivered. So like, for example, an HOA could come together and say, we want to do mailboxes, and the post office understands the HOA as a group, they're gonna agree on where those post office boxes are gonna go and they're gonna pay for
Dana, we paid nothing.
them. Okay, let me, if I can finish,
We
please.
paid nothing.
Yes, sir, I listened to you and now it's my time to speak. That's how communication works. Okay, so when you say, I want it to be delivered to my house, and you put a mailbox out there, that's an easy fix. But if we decide we want cluster boxes on every street, then an entire street has to agree to where that location is going to be, and everybody on the street has to agree to pitch in money for that. So you can kind of see where there might be a problem if there's somebody who says, I don't want home delivery, I want to keep my post office box, rather than have to pay a couple $100 for a cluster box. That's where we could potentially have problems. Now, if people are expecting the city to pay for those cluster boxes, again, it gets back to, you're paying the post office for this service that comes out of your taxes. If the city were to do that, we have no budget for that. So you would incur a new expense. Somehow we would have to pass that cost on to you, and you would be paying for the same service twice. You would still be paying for it. So that is a discussion for down the road. This is just all what ifs at this point, because the post office is not their strategy. And that is our first goal, is to put pressure on them to get a clear strategy as soon as possible. And I'm sure we have to move on, so.
Well, I was gonna suggest that we could move on because we've got a few more things to go through. Okay. We're now going to new business. Anyone wanting to comment on new business that we have? This is your chance, 3 minutes. Is what is allowed in our new business request for comments. Seeing none, we'll move on to the groundwater modeling services and request for funds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we also brought with us Mark McFadden, who is our Public Works Director for the city of Gearhart. Mark's been with us for a very long time, does an excellent job. The last month, the council improved these proposals, or a proposal for seeking groundwater monitoring services, specifically to develop a groundwater flow model to assist in the assessment of potential increased pumping at Gearhart Municipal Wellfield, currently operating under Oregon Water Resources Department permit to appropriate public waters. The primary objective of the request scope of services are to support the city's request for an additional water right and to evaluate a range of potential well field pumping scenarios, and to assess potential impacts of well field operations at specific locations. The city received one bid for council to consider, which is attached. Public Works Director Mark McFadden will also be able to review the submission, and it's a favorable recommendation. City staff is also requesting funds up to $83,000 to fund the awarded bidder. Council options are there. Recommendation is that staff recommends awarding Hyatt Geosciences LLC, the city's groundwater monitoring service project, and awarding funds up to $83,000. The legal analysis on that is proposals were advertised on the League of Oregon Cities, RFP site, post office, city website, social media, and blog. It's another reason we got to keep that post office. The project will be in multiple phases due to procurement rules, but really phase one is for us to learn some more information, and that's what this is about. Currently, the city has $1,269,787 in our water reserve fund. There's also an additional request for water reserve funds on the agenda, and that will be coming up here in a moment. Does the council have any questions?
I do. Just out of curiosity. It talks about water gauging station in Neocoxie Creek. And then it says that it's used to monitor stream stage.
Yes, ma'am.
And several water quality parameters, and I'm just curious as to what parameters it.
Well, on that one, there's probably a dozen of them. Mainly it's for water levels, TDS, chloride, specific conductivity. I can get you the whole list, but that's one of them. That is one of 4 that we have that measure all those parameters. It's the data loggers we've had in the ground since day one, and that's what our annual report is based on. So they wanted to know, basically that one was put in there because they want to know if we're affecting the Neocoxie Creek at all. So.
I would love to see the breakdown on the parameters that are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, we have that report we just got to doing for this year, so I can get you a copy of the report that shows every one of them and how they, and how they function this year, so.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Someone like to make a motion?
Well, I will.
Okay,
I move to award groundwater monitoring services project to Todd Groundwater, of Hyatt Geosciences LLC, and approve the funds request up to $83,000 to cover the cost.
okay. Any discussion?
Well, I can tell you that Chris has been with us since the first day we drilled our first well to get our own water, and he's the one that got to bid on this. He knows more about what's going on around here than groundwater. Anybody but me, so he's really qualified for this. I'm excited to be working with him on this.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay. We got that. Let's go on. Owners Representative Services, and we are going to allow this to rest for 2 weeks while you look it over.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So this was a conversation that we started. We went out for proposals for owners representative to help us through the public safety building, housing the police department, fire department, maybe in the future, at a location yet to be determined, at a price yet to be determined. These folks are very helpful. We went through this process of RFP, and we were very lucky to get 4 good proposals. 2 of them, we researched a little bit more deeply, talked with some of their references, asked some additional questions, but we're not quite ready to make the full recommendation right yet. We need a little bit more information, so I'm asking for a small amount of time. We have an upcoming budget committee meeting that I would like to look at scheduling a special city council meeting prior to or after that, preferably prior to have this discussion, and that will give us enough time to give the counselors enough information so that you can have everything at your fingertips to be able to make a good decision, and then be prepared to have and to answer any questions that the community might have when that comes up. So right at the moment, you don't have that information because we need to get a little bit more. We've got two very good proposals that we are seriously looking at. And each one of those, in the references that I have been able to check, have been excellent. So I'm really confident that we've got the right people to have the discussion with, but we want to make sure that the council has all the information before you make your decision. So I'm asking for just a little bit more time. I have notified all four of the proposal, the folks that submitted the proposals about this idea, and so that they are aware of it and available for the next meeting date. And I'm sorry, I didn't write that date down.
16th.
The 16th of this month is the potential time. We're gonna reach out to the city councilors here within the next couple of days to see and make sure that you're available for that. Is there any questions that the council has at this time? So essentially, I'd just like to table that.
So do you need a motion to table it until a further date?
Peter?
Okay, why not?
Okay, I'll give you a motion to table the new business RFP owners representative services and request for funds issue to a later date.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, council.
All right, moving on. Leak reduction request.
Certainly, Mayor, the synopsis attaches a request for an additional water bill credit from the Reamer family at 871 Hager. The meter reader suspected a leak during a January reading cycle. The water clerk called to advise the owner of the leak and that Public Works would be shutting the water off due to severity of water loss. Property management company called the following evening because a short-term rental guest arrived in the property with no water. City staff returned service after hours for the duration of their stay through the weekend and then shut it back off. A plumber arrived the following week and the city turned the water back on and the repair was confirmed. An additional 54 consumption units, which is 40,392 gallons, were used from the billing cycle through the repairs. We have this request that's attached to this. No idea that the water leak until I was notified, said Ms. Reamer. City of Gearhart, my management company, Improving Home Services. Normal water bill ranges between 80 and 200. And as you see, thank you very much. The amount of water that went through there, almost 2,000 consumption units made for a bill that was $12,753 over a billing cycle. So to let you know, our policy is we understand that things happen around town. Breaks happen without anybody's real, nobody at fault, maybe some old pipes and things like that. Through the process that we have, city staff is allowed to approve, specifically up to a 40% water reduction. Our requirements on there is that we have found the villain, meaning we know where the leak is, and the leak has been repaired. And this isn't something that happens all the time. Which is typically the case for people. They'll come in and say, I've got a $400 water bill. Here's my receipt. Here's what happened. We've got it fixed. We monitor that water bill to make sure that it doesn't continue. And then Justine and Christy put together the request for the reduction. I'll sign the reduction to provide some relief. In this case, this person, when I told them that I could potentially remove 40%, as you can see by the bill size of $12,000, they were a little worried. They were interested in coming to the city council because that would be the next option. Here we are.
So I have a question. And in looking at the legal analysis, about 4 lines down, it reads, the only exception to the consumer being liable for all damages is if a cause of water loss can be found, proof of repair furnished in the form of parts, labor, and receipts, and a documented drop in consumption unit. Well, they found the cause of water loss and they provided proof of repair. So why isn't it true that all damages wouldn't be charged?
Because by our ordinance, we can only, staff can only offer up to 40%.
Even though it says to the consumer being liable for all damages?
Yes.
All right, well, the next line down says the amount due caused by unusual circumstances may be reduced by 40%. I understand that. But what are unusual circumstances?
I can talk to some of the other 40% discounts that we've gotten. A lot of them seem to be the water connection between the house and the meter, where maybe an old pipe, or there was a damaged pipe or a slow leak over time and it just got worse. That's kind of an unusual circumstance.
So what would a usual circumstance be then, in that case?
Well, we have had a toilet running.
Thank you, Mark.
Toilet or faucet.
Thank you.
I think which are probably our most common, when you don't have the, your toilet's not operating correctly and you do not visit your house very often, that
Okay.
moves a lot of water. Other unusual circumstances, we've had people who had their hose been turned on.
I'm still confused why it says the consumer wouldn't be liable for all damages if the cost of water. I mean, I don't think that should even be in there. Cross that line out. I don't get it.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, the other thing with this is that normally when we're aware of the leak, we shut the water off and the water remains shut off until the plumber arrives to make the repair. This is an unusual circumstance in that we had shut the water off because of the leak.
Right.
And then because it was a short-term rental and there was a person there, the water was turned back on until the short-term rental was vacated, at which point it was turned back off and repaired. So we don't necessarily know how much water went through during that duration, but that is where this differs from ones we've seen in the past.
Okay, these people here, I mean, it's a short-term rental, they've got a property management, right? Where were they?
I believe they were involved in that. They called us asking for us to turn the water back on.
Well, no, but I mean, you know, in the time it was started, I mean, this happened within 2 months.
Yeah, the only way they would have been able to know there was a leak is if they would have read the meter, because this was an underground leak, and so the water wasn't showing.
Or maybe a toilet was full.
Yeah, this one is where they actually paid, well.
I read it.
Yeah. So they paid to get it repaired. They found the error.
do we know how much money they made off of being able, us turn the water back on and then being able to maintain the that they had in their place for the weekend? I mean, they didn't owe that money.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they had to make any concessions or not, or whether or not they got a full stay out of it.
Okay, so does anyone have a feeling one way or the other?
I don't know, they paid Terry's plumbing $8,420 to fix it. Which seems fairly excessive to me, but I mean, going through all of this, 300 feet, where'd you go? And had to dig a trench and put in a new water line, is that right, Mark?
As far as I know, I wasn't actually on that job site, my other guy, Steven, did this.
My feeling is that 40% forgiveness is pretty generous, and that is the precedent that has been set in the past. So I would advocate for that.
Someone want to make a motion then? Or does someone want to discuss further?
Well, I guess my where I'm on the fence with this is this isn't our money, this is their money. And it's not their fault either that there was a leak on this property that is essentially a business. And I mean, I do sympathize with somebody who got an $8,000 bill, but I have to imagine if somebody was fully occupying that house, wouldn't you hear something? Or you wouldn't, Mark, would you hear
Not
something?
necessarily, sometimes you can have a leak, it'll come up across the street somewhere, the way the sand is here and the rock, it could. Sometimes if it's outside, you wouldn't necessarily know, I've seen some that they had a leak, and I mean, I couldn't even find it in the yard, but it's there, so,
Particularly if you're on sand.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Well, I agree with Sharon. I'd go for the 40% reduction.
Someone wanna make a motion?
It's less than what they paid. It's less than what they paid. Attorney's fund.
I move that the city agrees to, reduce the water bills by 40%.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, 40%, thank you.
Council?
Um,
All right. Fund request. Hypochlorite generation system. Mark, you want to tell us a little?
Yeah, so in our water plant, we have we create our own chlorine that we have to put in the water, same law. It creates a 0.8% solution of sodium hypochlorite. That machine is over 10 years old now, and per manufacturer request, it's past its lifespan already. We've got it farther than it should have been. In the meantime, I've added a dilution system ahead of that in case we were to have to shut it down for any reason if it broke down, and that way we can dilute heavier chlorine purchase to put into the system if we had to keep it running. But I am requesting funds out of our water reserve fund to replace that. So, I mean, things are getting older, it's got to get replaced. So without that, we can't run water. So.
Right. Anyone got any questions for Mark? Anyone want to make a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the funds for a new hydrochloric generation system.
Second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those against? Thank you. All right. Mark, you want to tell us a little bit about the
That's fine too, huh?
membrane?
So when we put in our system years ago, when we started, we have two separate skid units. Each one of them has 48 filters in it. And right now, those two units in the month of May and June are running at maximum capacity, wide open. So any breakdown, any hiccup, anything, especially last June, we're looking at basically if I shut down for a day, one of those machines, we can't produce enough water to provide the city just because all the irrigation systems running basically. So when they built the building, they made room for a third skid unit with 48 filters in it. It would be nice to be able to shut one down and do the maintenance and the. Another thing we have to do a lot is like acid cleans on them. I mean, if the pressures get too high, the water pushing through those filters will shut down. So you have to do acid cleans on them also. In the month of June, I can't even shut down to do those cleans. Well, I did, but it's like at 2 a.m, I gotta be in here and do all that, shut these downs constantly all through the month of May and June. I would like to try to move forward with at least, I mean, I did get a price estimate of what it would cost, what our engineers think it would cost, to do this whole system, and it's over $1 million, but I mean, the skid unit alone is pushing $500,000. So, what I'd like to do is move forward with the engineering side of it, to do all the plans and write up the engineering program, the electrical, everything, and kind of move forward with that to find out what we could do. And possibly even just do it in phases, you know, purchase some of the equipment, if that's what we can do. Or, it's moving forward, if we want more water rights, we're gonna have to have more production. So, I mean, the water rights don't really do us a lot of good if we can't make the water. So, that's kind of where we're at.
Right. So right now, this is just for a RFP.
RFP for the engineering side of it, the design side, so to begin with. That's where they'll design the whole system. I mean, there's a lot of electrical, a lot of programming, a lot of piping, a lot of all that stuff that goes into it. So, and possibly some of it we could probably do ourselves, but it's. We won't know until we get the engineering side done.
So, Mark,
That's-
Mark, how do you change the filters with the, I mean, with the system running full blast all the time? How do you change those filters out anyway?
We replace them like every 6 years. We don't have to change them out. So all we gotta do is clean them. So they sit in a bath of water and we just add chemicals to that water and heat. We heat the chemicals, heat the water, it circulates, but it takes 12 hours. So that one machine is shut down for 12 hours every time we do an acid clean on it, which is once a month. But when you're running each machine at 300 gallons a minute, which is the max for each machine, they plug up quicker. So once a month in June goes to once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. So.
Does anybody have any kind of an idea what you'd be asking for this RFP, or what kind of net figure talk about?
What was that number that was on? I have to get back to you on that one. I don't have that from me. There was an engineering side of it.
I'd like to have that number and consider it when we're going through the budgeting process. I don't feel comfortable saying, I mean, personally.
Well,
not knowing that number.
No, and we don't have to, and we don't know. I mean, it depends. We don't have to go with the RFPs when we get them back. It depends on what they come back.
Yeah.
with. So it's not, I'm not asking for the money right now. I'm just asking
Okay.
to
To do
explore
what?
that.
You're asking
To
to,
put out an RFP for the engineering side of this.
right? Yeah, go ahead, get it done. As far as I'm concerned, we need it. Let's find out what it would cost.
I mean, and I got the cost estimate from Kennedy Jenks. They're the ones that initially did all this stuff. So they have all the original drawings, everything. They're the ones that set up everything to add this third skid, so.
And we're gonna need this thing anyway, right?
Down the road, yes, absolutely.
So do we need to make a motion or make consensus?
And I tell you, things are getting cheaper, so.
This is just part of our communication, just trying to make sure you know what we're up to, but we would like, before going out to something like this and doing an RFP and advertising it, we want to make sure that you folks are on the same page and would advocate for us to do that as well. So that we're not wasting your time.
Well, you've already heard me.
Yes.
It kind of goes right along with asking for more water rights. Asking for water rights, we gotta have more production.
That's right.
I mean, it's,
So, I mean, we're gonna need this third unit anyway. And then what happens down the road if we need a fourth unit? I mean,
It's a new,
we gotta start, we'd have to start all over. Yeah, I mean, because there's a lot that goes into it too, because our tanks are only so big. Our backwash tanks are only so big. I mean, our chemical supplies are only so big, so it's once you get beyond the third unit, it's a whole.
okay. All right, you got it.
Thank you.
All right. You want to lead this?
Yeah, this shouldn't take very long.
Great.
So So in the past, I have been approached by citizens who say it's not always really clear when we change an ordinance or when we take action that affects them and that they need to be aware of. We don't always do a great job of communicating with them those changes so that they can comply, and I tend to agree with that. And my thought was we would do a better job of posting it in the, on the blog and in the post office. But I don't know if the post office will, how long that will continue to be, or whether that's viable or not. But I would like us to hear any suggestions about how we could better communicate, whether we perhaps include something in a water bill, hey, this is something new coming down, or we make sure that we do a blog post. I know that we post our agendas and everything else, but to some people, they're not interested in this, but we need to give them a specific, hey, we just changed the water, the water ordinance, this is what you need to know. So.
Thank you.
If you have any thoughts, or have any better ideas, or if you would agree with me, I'd appreciate listening.
I agree with you.
I agree. I'd also like to see it in the water bill because some people don't read stuff on the computer.
How much, I know that postage can cost us money. Would that increase our postage significantly?
No, I think we can have up to 5 or 6 sheets in there.
And what about stamps on?
It would depend upon what it is. What are you thinking, like a newsletter or?
New ordinance, like today, or next month when we do our second reading on this ordinance. Or if we change parking rules.
And is that like the full ordinance? Would
Yeah.
the full ordinance go? If the amendment would probably be a lot.
Enough to communicate to them that there's been a change and what that change is, so that they can then comply. You're not surprised. Because our goal is to get compliance, it's not to surprise people and then.
In the water bill, you could put a notice in there that they need to check the blog.
Okay. I would prefer a synopsis if whenever possible, but yes, I would say rather than a 3 or 4 page document, then be aware, check the blog.
My bills from Seaside have the message at the bottom of their bill. It says, this is happening in Seaside, so we could maybe alter our billing, or is that strictly?
No, you can alter the building, but I think we have the back page of the bills. The back page that we could use.
Yeah, it's just having people turn it over might be more than some people would want to do,
I don't know that we have enough room on our current, we'd have to look into it, I don't know if there's.
Don't learn it, I mean, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, we can't read the bills for them, but I would at least like to make sure that we take one more additional step.
Updates, check the blog.
There you go.
okay,
I think we can make some improvements in regards to that. I think that celebrating afterwards and especially putting that onto the blog and the website that, okay, here are the changes, and here is the ordinance. Would be a great start. Adding to the water bills and doing that because there's a 2-month period of time and the amount of communication that we want to do and how much does that add, we'll have to take a look at those sorts of things. But I think that city staff, we can make an effort to celebrate some of the things that the Gearhart Council is working on and then notify people of when that is. And if we get it on the blog and a special posting, I think that'll cover a lot of people. It's not gonna cover everybody. Might start the conversations as well. If it's something that's very important and it's a big change, then, the water bills would be a great place for that as well. So we can come up with a couple of ideas of how to get the information out a little bit differently. Make it so that people are aware as many as we can. We'll come up with some ideas to give it a shot and we'll start with some of the things that we are coming out with today. I don't have anything definitive for you at the moment, but I think that we can get the postings out, get them on the website. And talk about some things like the ordinance for the R2 zone.
And if we need to adjust it later, we can always adjust it later, but then start, see how much success we have.
Okay,
And we'll reach out to you and see how it's going.
sure. All right.
Takes so long, I have enough.
Do you feel good?
Thank you.
Okay. Work sessions prior to council meetings, discussion.
That's me again,
Mm-hmm.
but I made my case last time. I think it would be helpful for staff and it would be helpful for us if we had a scheduled short work sessions before council meetings where we can do our bric-a-brac. And now therefore we get our council meetings, we can plow through, having already had some of the discussion and minutia. And those that want to listen in on that can, and our visitors don't have to sit here and listen to it. I was not necessarily suggesting it in lieu of our, fifth Wednesday of the month meetings or the meetings that occur periodically. However, I wouldn't be opposed to canceling some of those if we really don't have anything important to speak about. I would rather cancel it than have us all show up and say we don't have anything important to speak about, because every time we do that, staff has to give up their personal time to be here to write reports, and to me, that seems like not a good use of our staff time.
Okay. So, as you saw, we didn't use a work session today. We'll do that. Does everyone agree? Try it at the city council half an hour before.
I'd be willing to try it, like to just stipulate that it might not, we might not like it, or, just like.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just something we're gonna try.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a quick question, please?
Okay.
Well, if you want to try it out at the May 1st meeting, you're supposed to have a 5th Tuesday work session the day before on the 30th. So is this a situation where you would want it in both places?
This would be something I'm gonna think about, and I'm not doing that right now.
Okay, no problem, thanks.
No, thank you for bringing that up, because I didn't know the 30th was Tuesday. And the 1st will be Wednesday, geez.
And
Okay.
potentially a town hall Monday.
Oh, man. Yes, you're right, potentially. All right. So we'll work sessions at the beginning of a city council meeting and see if we like it. And I will decide if we're gonna do this 5th Tuesday, maybe we'll skip this one.
Is there any legal analysis that would?
No, the legal analysis would be if you decided to change the order of your meeting agenda. Because believe it or not, that's set forth in your charter. But this is not technically part of the public meeting. This is a separate work session, so we wouldn't have to amend your charter to a work session.
Right, thank goodness, huh?
Yeah.
Council concerns. Rita, do you have any?
No.
Preston?
0.
Sure. Dana?
Just that a reminder that the statement of economic interest are due this month
By the 15th.
by 15th.
Okay. I have no concerns except for all these meetings, but,
I didn't think that's.
yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that.
This is something in your water bill.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take a motion for adjournment. Nobody wants to adjourn?
I'll give you a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second, please. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I'm not asking for nays. I'm done. Okay. Thank you very much for coming out, everybody.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.